Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. The EU has released 16.4 billion euros of frozen funds to Hungary. This decision was announced by Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Commission, during a visit by Hungary's new Prime Minister Péter Magyar to Brussels. What does this decision mean for Hungary and why was it made now? Well, to lay that out for us, we're joined by Judit Lantai, an expert on EU and Hungarian affairs based in Brussels. Welcome to TVP World, Judit. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kava. It's happy to be here with you.
Great. You're very welcome. Now, before we start, there's a short soundbite that I'd like to share with you and our viewers, and then I'll get your view on it.
There was absolutely no link between the unfreezing of the funds and the opening of the first chapter of the Ukraine talks. We're already talking to Ukrainian partners. What's the most important for us is that we need guarantees regarding the 100,000 Hungarians who live in Ukraine, that they will be able to use their mother tongue at school, in cultural activities, in public administration.
To confirm there's absolutely no link between the negotiations that we had and Ukraine, because Next Generation EU and cohesion funds are not linked to accession. But of course, we have been discussing many topics, among them also, of course, accession of candidate countries. And I want to re-emphasize here, and we've discussed that, this is a merits-based process. And our line is very clear that Ukraine and Moldova have met all the conditions necessary to open the fundamentals cluster, the first cluster. So they've been working hard, they have been working intensely on the necessary reforms, and they have delivered on these reforms, so there is no reason to delay the process.
Right, so both of those people, Ursula von der Leyen, Péter Magyar, are going to great lengths to say, well, this has nothing to do with Ukraine and Ukraine's accession. Do you believe them?
Yes, I actually do, in that sense as well. I think that was more of a narrative also that the Orbán government tried to portray in Hungary for quite some time. This was also portrayed always that the frozen EU funds were coming as a political attack from the EU. Because of vetoing the accession of Ukraine, because of being a part of that. So I think it's great that both Péter Magyar and Ursula von der Leyen very clearly say this is not the case. Of course, there's questions on how much Hungary does support the joining of Ukraine to the EU, but I do believe that the frozen assets were not linked indeed.
Okay, I mean, Péter Magyar did mention Hungarian-speaking people living in Ukraine and certain conditions attached to their approval of Ukraine joining the EU. What do you think of those conditions about the Hungarian minority?
Well, you know, in the Hungarian side, this is a long-standing thing. So this is not new as an approach. And I think he also mentioned in this briefing that there's an 11-point proposal probably on the table. I'm not sure it's 11, but surely there are details. And what I can also say from that is that this new TISA government is also taking that very much forward and trying to make sure that the Hungarian minority in Ukraine is respected, has all the access to the rights that they also believe they should have. And I also think it's not to be expected that this new government completely changes course on what Ukraine will mean in the foreign politics of Hungary. They made it also very obvious that they will not abuse the veto in that sense, but Hungary will also not participate, for example, in the 90 billion loan that we're sending to Ukraine. And also in the hearing of Anita Orbán, the new foreign minister of Hungary, she made it clear that Hungary will not send troops or arms to Ukraine either. So there's clearly the stance of support to Ukraine if we manage to progress on those support for the minority, the Hungarian minority.
Understood. Now let's zoom out a little bit, Judith, and talk about this 16.4 billion euros of unfrozen funding. How significant is this, politically speaking?
think it's absolutely significant on both sides, really. I think from an EU perspective, this is a way for us to test how well did we design the measures to stray back member states who have strayed off from the course of common action. So I think there's a lot of interest and even excitement in a way to see how this will pan out. Did we design those measures well, and are we implementing them well at the end of the day in the case of Hungary? And when it comes to Hungary, this is way more pragmatic. I think even Péter Magyar said it, that this 16.4 billion is basically 13% of the Hungarian budget of 2026. So in a way, it's also a matter of, are we able to put the economy back on track in Hungary with this change? In the
right,
government?
well, you talk about putting the economy back on track, Judith. What kind of an economic situation did Péter Magyar actually inherit?
Right. That is, we could talk about this for hours, actually. So I'll try to be brief on how we go about that. But as much as we can say is that we know that there's going to be around the 7% deficit goal already for this year. The GDP forecast has been wrong and going down for all of these years. There was extremely high level of inflation in these past years of Hungary, making the cost of living rise significantly. In my opinion, this was a big push also in the election results that we saw. People really feel it on their skin that the economy is not working, due to the fact that there was almost a reverse state capture that took place in Hungary. Under Orbán's government, all of the key economical areas and businesses and actors were captured by state-related elite. So the term oligarch is also not far from being used in what's happening in Hungary. This oligarch structure exists. There has been billions of state resources that were funneled also into the hands of the very few in the country. And these hands of the very few are still controlling a big part of the economy. So I believe there's a lot of work to be done there.
Well, there certainly is. How confident is the EU and you, actually, that the conditions upon which this money was unfrozen will be met? I mean, Péter Magyar has only been in power for a few weeks.
Of course, and I believe this was also clear from the official dialogue that we've seen between the EU and Péter Magyar, that it doesn't mean that everything has been implemented to a dot, but things are set on the right course. And in that sense, I also believe that there will be truly an effective outcome. There are signs also to say that we're joining the European Prosecutor's Office. That's actually not an expectation from Hungary. It's something that Hungary did as a gesture and as showing in this new government that they want to belong to the EU and to be implementing rule of law properly also and respecting it all throughout. So I do think that there's a good course of action in that. This government also put forward a lot of changes when it comes to trying to condition a bit more all of those state actors. I believe they are called public institution trusts in English. We have them as NKA in Hungary. They have been part of this big issue in the frozen funds from the EU side. And the new government already set to take them out and completely dissolve them over time. So of course, the dissolving process will take some time, but the laws are already existing to do that, and it will continue to be doing so. Yeah.
Okay, now in the last minute or so that we have left, Judith, many have got used to seeing Viktor Orbán being obstructive towards EU policy, EU decision-making and so on. How confident are we that this is actually going to change and that we're going to see a more pre-EU approach by Péter Magyar and the system and the government that he is in charge of now?
Right. So I think to some extent there are already signs of that from a perspective of trying to revitalize the V for cooperation and turning very much towards external partners from the very first moment that this government won. Does it mean that they're going to put the national interests of Hungary aside? Absolutely not. And I think Péter Magyar is really trying to emphasize that a lot, that he wants a strong Hungarian representation out there. At the same time, this does not mean, obviously, that they will have a completely pro-EU stance necessarily. I believe that is to be seen. We see also that they belong to the mainstream from the perspective of belonging to the European People's Party, which is the biggest political group currently in the European Parliament. So there's elements of belonging there and also having a strong voice in conversations within EPP. Whether that will mean that they are pro-European and building strongly the European Union, I believe that is to be seen.
Indeed, it does remain to be seen. Judit Lantai, expert on Hungary based in Brussels, thank you very much for your analysis and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much as well. Have a great day too.
Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.